Welcome back to Talking Devils podcast, brought to you by talkingdevils.co.uk, your number one independent Manchester United podcast. I absolutely love saying that every week. It's absolutely brilliant. Joined here today by former Manchester United player Phil Marsh. I'm here today to talk about the big one, the biggest game in English football, and probably, in my opinion, the biggest game in football. Manchester United versus Liverpool, the two biggest clubs in England, the biggest rivalry in football, and at the moment, the relegation battle derby. So we will be chatting all about that this evening. And we're going to also chat about the recent protests that are organised. We're going to chat about that and also about the situation about the projected takeover that may be happening at the club. We will also talk about that. And then also, obviously, the rumours of Casemiro almost being done to be a Manchester United player. We will get Phil's thoughts on that, and whatever you guys as well in the comment section want to bring up to us, we will talk about that this evening. But first of all, Phil, I watched the match reaction after the Brentford game. Not a great day for us United fans. How are you feeling since then? How's the form been since that game?
Not too bad. Obviously, it was a shock to the system, even by our standards. Yes, it wasn't a good day, and obviously not a game that we'll sort of look back on anytime soon. But yeah, no, all good, mate. Obviously, it's one of them at the moment. We're sort of in a rough period, and we're hoping that there's some sort of light at the end of the tunnel. But yeah, just it's going to be a sort of a long road, I think, until we're back sort of where we need to be. And there's going to be a lot of bumps in the road, like the Brentford game, until the inevitable happens and the Glazers are gone, and we get the recruitment side of things right. And we get the right players into the football club that we need. So yeah, that's obviously not going to be a short term sort of goal, but that's what we're trying to look towards doing. So yeah, that's it, mate. And I'm looking forward to obviously a reaction, which we've said a few times over the past couple of seasons after a heavy defeat. But again, if you can't get yourself up for a game against Liverpool, then may as well just all pack up and go on.
Absolutely. I think I was saying this the other day. If you're not up for a game against Liverpool, your biggest rival, the enemy, you may as well go home. You may as well pack your bags and never put on a Manchester United shirt ever again if you're not up for this type of game. We will delve into the game and stuff like that, because obviously there's a lot of talking points tonight that we do have to discuss, not just about United but also Liverpool as well. Comment section is talking. Helly's talking about Casemiro there. She's buzzing that the club is pulling off this deal. Obviously, this is something that's after escalating since Tuesday, Phil. In terms of this transfer going ahead, obviously there's a lot of talk about the takeover, and consequently, since then, this Casemiro deal has I suppose been coming to fruition. Looks like obviously he's not going to be there for Liverpool, but looks like consequently he's going to be a Manchester United player. What's your thoughts on Casemiro coming to Manchester United, and what's your feelings about finally us getting that defensive midfield player that me, you and Lee have been harping on about in the last kind of 12 months?
Yeah, as I say, I think it's been a position that we've sort of been crying out to sort of get sorted for a long time. Obviously was a bit surprised that we've managed to get a player of Casemiro's ilk, if you like. But I think that's what we should be doing. These are the kind of players that we should be bringing to the club in order to sort of take us to the next level. For me, I think he's a fantastic player. I mean, he's somebody who I think will certainly come in and sort of change the sort of the way he plays the game, and the way he's sort of energy and his passion, and he loves putting a tackle in. I think that's exactly what we're lacking at this moment in time. Somebody who'll lead by example in that way. And I think obviously on the ball as well, I think he's a very good player. I think he gets probably overlooked a little bit on that side of things, because obviously he plays with Luka Modric and Toni Kroos in there. So yeah, obviously looking forward to seeing him, and I think he'd be a great addition to the squad. So yeah, I'm excited by the prospect of him coming in. I still don't think that him coming through the door will solve our problems sort of short term. I think he's one player that's, somebody who's going to come in and add a bit more quality and somebody who we need. But again, I don't think he's going to be the sort of key to all our problems. So I wouldn't get too carried away if I was, supporters thinking he's going to come in and change the whole dynamic of where we are at this present moment. But again, it's a big positive, and it's somebody who I've admired from afar. He's obviously got a great record. He's won numerous trophies. He's an international. So yeah, great signing, and that's the kind of player we need to be bringing into the club to sort of get us where we need to be.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting signing, and I'm seeing a lot of people on social media or wherever, and it's mostly kind of rival fans writing him off because he's 30, but he's younger than Kevin De Bruyne, younger than Thiago, the same age as Jesse Lingard. Like, he's a great player, and he's someone who's a leader as well. You can see him; he's a personality in that Real Madrid team, and that's something that we lack in our team. I think is personality and character, and he's someone who does deliver that. And look, it's again, people can talk about the fee, but he's like behind, in my opinion, behind Rodri, he's probably the second best defensive midfield player in world football. Like, behind Rodri at this moment in time, probably like the second best. Just won the Champions League and was a very integral part of that Champions League winning squad last season. So obviously, people are saying, why Real Madrid selling them? Well, let's be honest. They've just signed Chouameni this summer. They have Valverde, who's younger. They have Camavinga, and they're going all out for Jude Bellingham next summer. So that's why they want to kind of, I suppose, bring in a new crop of midfielders. But Ancelotti actually didn't want him to go. But they said because obviously of the acquisition of Chouameni, that they could afford to leave him go. Because obviously they have him, and like, look, when you look at the Jude Bellingham deal next summer, if Real Madrid do that, like, Casemiro's game time next season probably would have been limited anyway. But look, he's coming into the Premier League. I think from a physical aspect, he won't struggle in that regard. I look at the likes of Thiago Silva and players like that coming to the Premier League, they didn't struggle. Like, look at Fernandinho when he came to the Premier League as a defensive midfielder, he didn't struggle either. So good signing. And look, it's something that we weren't even considering. In the last 6 months, we were talking about defensive midfielders. We were talking about Declan Rice. We were talking about all these different players, and we actually never considered Casemiro. So it's kind of a welcome surprise and a welcome transfer. Just another one there, Phil. Just on this signing, in terms of Casemiro, do you think Ten Hag, after watching, like, obviously he's not a typical Erik Ten Hag number 6, like defensive midfield player. He's not that typical Ten Hag type of player. Do you think Ten Hag's watched these 2 Premier League games and obviously seen the way we've conceded goals? Do you think he's probably looked at Casemiro and probably looked at him as probably a different type of midfielder he's going to need for this system to succeed? Because, like, we're playing Christian Eriksen holding midfield the other day, and before that we played McTominay and Fred in a 2. Do you think he's looking at Casemiro and knows he needs a destroyer in there, considering when you look at all the top 6 players, obviously City of Rodri, obviously Liverpool of Fabinho, Arsenal, whether you like it or not, they've Granit Xhaka in there, they like Chelsea of Kovacic and Kante. Like, do you think he maybe looked at that and looked at the way we've conceded goals and maybe think he needs to shore it up a bit in there, and that's why he's gone for a player like Casemiro?
Yeah, possibly. As I say, I think, playing in the Premier League, it's always going to be difficult for that particular player in that position because of the speed and the physicality of the league. The demands on them kind of players are always going to be very high. Now, he's obviously been at Real Madrid. He's played at the top level for a number of years, and I think, him being available maybe to bring into the club, it's a no-brainer. I think, as you just touched on there, we have looked weak in them areas sort of for a number of seasons, and obviously starting the season the way we have done isn't ideal. I think he's somebody who will definitely come in and sort of improve us and make it a lot more difficult for teams to break us down, because I think he reads the game really well. He's intelligent, and as I say, I think he's not just a sort of player that, is a tackler and somebody who'll just get stuck in. He is actually quite good on the ball, and I think that's what we've really been lacking from that deep holding midfield position. Since Michael Carrick and players like that, we've not really had anyone really who's been able to dictate a game from that particular position. Now, I'm not saying he's going to come in and start dictating the game. like Michael Carrick would do. But I just feel as though he's somebody who's probably going to take us on to that next level of, player who can maybe start off moves and, will read the game a little bit better than what we have had previously. Because as we've seen in them first 2 games, the defence is getting exposed far too often, and we've seen sort of that we're not up to the task at this moment in time to deal with that. So I think he'll come in and be a great addition. But as I say, I wouldn't necessarily think he's going to solve the problem. I still feel like we're quite a long way off being where we need to be, but I think he's a step in the right direction, most definitely.
Yeah, and I think he's someone who I think drastically improves the midfield. Obviously, I think we still need a bit more, but he's definitely a player that improves. Phil, we're both going to answer this one. Richard says, who is going to partner Casemiro, Fred or Scott, or would he play in his own that area of the pitch? I think myself, he will play as a 6. And like Fred does for Brazil, I think Fred would be more box to box. And I actually think with this transfer, I think you'll see Casemiro, Fred, and probably Eriksen in the more creative role. Obviously, him and Bruno will have to fight it out for that position. But yeah, I think it'll be Casemiro and Fred because they have an understanding for playing with Brazil. And I think with Casemiro coming, it actually lessens Fred's defensive responsibility, and he can be more potent in them kind of attacking areas. Like we actually did see under Ralph Rangnick last season, he did play very well when he was a bit higher up the pitch. But would you think to even reverse that? Obviously, Scott McTominay, when he's higher up the pitch in a box-to-box role, rather than sitting, he's good in getting into the box and being physical. Like, do you think between Fred or Scott, who do you think would be more suited to kind of partner Casemiro in there?
Yeah, I mean, personally, I think, Fred would probably just get the nod over Scott at this moment in time, just purely based on, obviously, the chemistry that they've got playing together with Brazil. I think, obviously, Fred's probably been the better of the 2 players, certainly in the last sort of, 6 to 12 months, especially, when he played a little bit higher. I thought, Fred was really good. And I think that we may see a little bit more out of Fred higher up the pitch, because obviously we signed him, from Shakhtar, I think it was, in that position. And I think, he can offer a little bit more sort of higher up the pitch. So, yeah, it'd be interesting to see, because, I mean, we don't know whether Casemiro, has been brought in to try and fulfill that role on his own, so we could play maybe 2 other players who can maybe create more, because I think that's another thing we've struggled with, certainly in the first couple of games of the season. We've not created enough, and we've not really got balls in the box, or we've not got players running through on goal, because we've not been able to break teams down, which is worrying. So whether they've got plans of maybe eventually let him deal with that on his own and trying to get somebody else who can be a bit more creative in.
So you're saying like maybe Eriksen and Bruno with a Casemiro?
I mean, potentially. I don't think against every team that's going to be something that he'd look at doing, but I think it could be another option against certain teams and against certain teams who set up in a way that we might be able to deal with that. And then someone like Casemiro, who's obviously a seasoned pro at doing that particular role with the experience he's got, it could be an option. In order for us to try and help, create a little bit more, because as I say, we've not really been able to break teams down with the sort of ease that we should be doing really against certain teams.
Yeah, and I think especially against teams that maybe sitting on the 18 looking to hit us on the counter-attack, like to break these teams down, I think maybe a Casemiro as a lone midfielder in there, and then maybe giving Eriksen and Fernandes, more freedom to go forward, or even a Donny van de Beek. I know I always bring him up, but it could be something that we can maybe look at in terms of against teams who on paper would be less superior than us, but at the moment we're at the bottom of the table. So yeah, you kind of have to say on paper at the minute. And Jim says here, and this will be the kind of last one on Casemiro, we do have to dive into the game itself. Is Casemiro signing the end of the Frankie de Jong saga? I'll leave you take that one, Phil. Do you reckon that is, or do you think, like Sancho, we might come back in for Frankie de Jong next summer?
Yeah, potentially. I mean, again, I think the De Jong is somebody who the manager really likes. He's obviously worked with him before. I don't think that deal is going to happen. Certainly not in this window now. But yeah, I mean, he may come back and revisit that maybe in the next transfer window if the situations maybe
After the World Cup could be very interesting.
Yeah. I mean, that'll obviously depend on the situation that he's got at Barcelona, what happens in the World Cup, how we sort of carry on from now until the start of the World Cup, and there's probably a lot of things that will happen in between then to sort of decipher whether we can carry on with that particular transfer. But again, I think the manager does really like him, and he's shown a big interest in him. So yeah, I think he will still keep him on the radar, but again, I think it's going to be a difficult one, really, with all the stuff that's going on at Barcelona and the money issues and whatever. So it could be one that drags out for a while.
Yeah, I think it's something that is definitely still we need to look out for, because like Barcelona are taking financial levers out left, right, and centre, and like that's not sustainable. And there's talk about Man United doing that, which we'll talk about that in a minute. But I think it depends on what happens with him, not only financially at Barcelona, but also you have to look at it as well. Will he start every game there? Because the fact that the amount of midfielders they're after getting, and if you look at pre-season, Frankie de Jong was playing centre half during pre-season. So like, will he be happy with that over a course of a season? I doubt that very much. So like, that's where I think United need to be monitoring that situation very closely, and especially look after the World Cup could be, like, I know it's next summer, like it's probably most likely, but after the World Cup could be a very opportunistic time for us to sign him. But again, it's one of them situations where like it's not only dependent on Barcelona, it depends what happens to us, because obviously like it's been reported that the Glazers are looking to put Manchester United up for sale. Obviously, Phil, Jim Ratcliffe has been linked with, obviously, with coming in and taking over the club. Obviously, Apollo have been linked as well, but looks like that's going to be dead in the water by the looks of things. Looks like Jim Ratcliffe is the most likely person to come in and take over Manchester United. Obviously, Phil, he's a Man United fan, first and foremost. Obviously, he is the richest or second richest man in Britain. Someone who is going to if he is to take over, you'd like to think his heart will be in the right place. Unlike the owners we do have now, obviously they're non-existent in terms of their communication with the club. What are your thoughts to us, obviously, on a potential takeover at Manchester United? Obviously, it's been reported that it's going to be maybe 5-6 billion that it may cost the new potential owners to come in and take over the club. What are your thoughts? This obviously, because I know you mentioned one phrase a while ago, is a light at the end of the tunnel. Do you look at this? I know, the start of the season hasn't been great, but the fact that the pressure seems to be cranked up in the Glazers, and it seems like now potentially if that person could come in and take us over, what would you make of that potential situation?
Yeah, I mean, as bad as we've been this sort of season at the start, I think on the pitch, I think this would be far, superior to anything that's going to happen on the football field this season if we can, get the Glazers out of the club and bring somebody into the club like Jim Ratcliffe, who's obviously a football fan. He loves the club. I actually listened to a guy who was speaking about him the other day, or it might have been today, but he was basically saying, somebody like Jim Ratcliffe, who's obviously a very, very wealthy person, who's willing to put that money into the club as an investment. Obviously, there's going to be a financial benefit to him, but that's secondary, I think, to what he's looking to do with the club. I think he wants to put the money into the club to get the club back to where it needs to be, and have the feel good factor around the place, and the interaction with the supporters and all that side of things. So if we can get this sort of done at some point in the near future, then that would be amazing. I think that would be what all Man United fans have been begging to happen for such a long time. So yeah, that would be great news if that does happen. And I think again, then you've got someone who's going to back the club financially. We'll be able to, hopefully recruitment will be improved. But most of all, all the stuff that the Glazers have done and the way they've hemorrhaged money and all that kind of stuff in the background, all that'll be put to bed, and we can finally concentrate on the most important thing, which is, the football on the field and the club being back to winning trophies, which is what I'm sure he wants to see. Which any owner of a football club should want to see. That's how he should be judged. The way the club's run and winning trophies and being successful that way.
And like, as a former player of the club, Phil, and obviously a supporter of the club as well, like when you look at what the Glazers are doing to the football club, how does that make you feel when you look at the way they treat this club and treat us as supporters and people who are connected to the club? Like, how does that make you feel when you look at what they've done over a 17-year span?
Yeah, it's horrible. I mean, any owners of any business, you need transparency with the fans, because at the end of the day, the club wouldn't be what it is without the fans. The fans are everything, and obviously they're just using it as a cash cow, really, and they're just doing everything for their own benefit, their own selfish means. And I think it's just got to a stage now where it's been going on for far too long. They've had a good ride with all the stuff that they've done over that 17-year period with the club. I think they just need to basically do the right thing now and let somebody else come in who's going to take Man United back to where they deserve to be and where they need to be, as one of the biggest clubs, if not still the biggest club in the world, in my opinion. So it's been a hard period, obviously. At the start of it, when they first come in and Sir Alex was still there.
You would have been at the club. You would have been at the club at that time.
Yeah, I mean, when it first happened and stuff, it sort of all looked okay, and you've got these American owners coming in, with a lot of money and this, that, and the other, and I think it only sort of started hitting home after probably 5-6 seasons after Ferguson had left, what they was actually here for and what he was doing, and it was the start of the decline, really, of everything that's come to fruition over the last 10 years. So definitely something that needs addressing. They've obviously done what they've done, and we're hoping now, as fans, as lovers of the football club, that they can do the right thing. They can get somebody in who's more passionate about the club, who will interact, will back the club in the right way, and sort of we can start pushing back up that table and getting to where we should be, which is challenging for trophies on a regular basis.
Yeah, it's something that look. I think the head of the snake is going to be cut off very, very soon, and I think there's no smoke without fire for me. And the fact that there is Jim Ratcliffe's coming out and expressing interest. Like, if he's coming out publicly expressing interest, I think feeders would have been put out there. Do you know that? That's obvious off for saying.
That's the thing. I don't think, obviously, because there has been rumours about this before, and obviously other people, but I think at this moment in time, something's got to give now with the way it's been going on for so long. Obviously, the start of the season for the club, all the stuff that's going on in the background, and obviously Jim Ratcliffe's been publicly seen to sort of made a statement about wanting to, get a minority share or something in the club. So I think, if he can do that and then, gradually build that up over a period of time, then that'd be a fantastic solution to obviously all the problems that are going on at the football club.
Yeah, and look, again, even if it's like, obviously he wants that to be a full share of the club, and look, I think the way the Glazers are looking at it, they're looking to get out as well. They're looking for a way up, because look, put it this way: if Champions League football is not achieved this season, whether it's through the top 4 or top 6, or not top 6, whether it's through the Europa League, that's detrimental to the football club in terms of that Adidas deal next summer. Like that Adidas deal that gets cut in half in 2023 if we don't finish in the top 4. Like, that's something that's going to greatly affect the football club. And then not only that, the TeamViewer have pulled out the sponsors just after a year after being at the club. Like the walls are closing in on these parasites, and I think when you look at this right now, I don't know how longer they can sustain being owners of this football club. Yes, they can take their dividends out every year, but the shop is going to close eventually. And the fact they're talking about taking out levers and selling TV rights and stuff like that, what that tells me is that the club is broke, because the cash flow. Like, I was talking to Kieran Maguire there a couple of months ago, and the football finance expert, and like, in 2 months ago, he said to me that a takeover for Manchester United could be, could happen sooner rather than later because of how badly the financial situation is there. The Glazers may be actually looking to do cash out.
Yeah.
And like I look at that situation now, and I'm like, there's no surprise that they're leaking. That they're up for selling the club. There's no surprise that like Jim Ratcliffe will put feelers out there to say he's up for buying the club. Because if you actually look a couple of months ago when Jim Ratcliffe wanted to buy Chelsea, Jim Ratcliffe said on an interview on BBC that Manchester United isn't for sale and there's no point putting a bid in. All of a sudden, the other day, his spokespeople come out and talk to the press, and the press obviously have obviously made that story available to us that Jim Ratcliffe is interested in buying United. So again, as I said, there's no smoke without fire, and I think like it kind of brings me on to the next thing. When you look at people such as the 1958 who are protesting against these owners, and they're doing it in numbers, very, very big numbers, and look, it's gathering a lot of attention from the press. It's gathering a lot of attention from us here doing a podcast. It's gathering mainstream attention. The 1958, who are the biggest fan group at the moment, who are protesting against these owners. I suggest to everyone who is watching this podcast right now, or you're listening on the audio later on, back this fan group. If you're a match going fan, or you're from overseas, or from wherever you are, you need to back this fan group because they are being proactive in their approach and they are being transparent. And I think now when you actually, look at this situation, the owners, they are in dire straits. They're under pressure. Why do you think 2 weeks ago they're trying to sign Adrian Rabiot and Marko Arnautovic? And then after that fan backlash, and after obviously the walls closed in, now they're signing Casemiro. Now they're linked with Anthony. Now they look like putting in a bid for Anthony. Now they're signing a right back and a goalkeeper. Why is that? Because they know the walls are closing in. They've seen the start of the season. They're in panic mode right now because they know if Champions League is not achieved this season, they're screwed. They know financially this club will be in the pits. There's no shock that Richard Arnold, when he did meet with a couple of members of the 58 a couple of months ago, where he said the money is here next summer, it won't be there next summer. Do you know why he said that? Probably because he wasn't confident this club was going to finish in a Champions League place. And that's why he's saying that type of statement. And that's why the walls are closing in on these owners. And you need to back these protests. And myself, Phil, Lee, we've all vocally said that we're obviously behind these protests, and we want these fans to succeed because at the end of the day, we want our football club back. Like that's what we want. At the moment, look, we're all supporters of the football club. We all have a connection to this football club. But ultimately, we want this back in the power of the fans and in the power of someone who wants to run this football club for us. Not to these people over in Tampa Bay who couldn't give I'm not going to say the word, but couldn't give Joe a rat's bottom of what we think. So, look, whenever I say to you guys, whether you're overseas, whether you're in the UK, wherever it may be, just back the 1958, back all these groups who are putting pressure on the Glazers, because at the end of the day, once the fan base is united, and once the Glazers are put under pressure, eventually there's going to be a breaking point. They're going to have to sell. So, and obviously, look, as I say to you, again, sponsors, stuff like that, do what you need to do, but at the end of the day, we can't have this lasting any longer.
Yeah, no, totally agree with what you said. I'm fully behind the supporters. I think they've done it in a respectful way. They've done it in the right way. And yeah, massive pressure now on the Glazers from all angles, really. So we're just hoping that something's got to give, and we can get somebody like Jim Ratcliffe, who we know has got a connection to the club, and he will do the ownership sort of the right way. We're hoping so. Yeah, that's obviously what we want to see sooner rather than later. So getting all the backing from myself, and I'm sure all the other fans. I think they've done a great job, and hopefully the voices will keep getting heard, and the right people will keep trying to make this thing happen. What we all want to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, it's the biggest game of the season on Monday. So all the eyes, every single broadcaster is going to be looking at this game. If there's ever a time to protest, it is Monday, 100%. And Wayne just letting us know as well in the comments, guys, that we do have Matt Dickinson of the Times, and he broke the story, and so he's going to be on the podcast next week as well. So do be sure to check that out as well. But Phil, what we are here to speak about this evening mainly is the biggest game in English football, which is Man United versus Liverpool. Whether, I'm going to put an asterisk over it, whether the game goes ahead or not, and we do have to speak about the game. So basically, look, both teams haven't had the best start to the league season. United have had 2 defeats. Liverpool have had 2 draws. Coming up to this game, I wasn't expecting us to be only 2 points behind Liverpool. I'm not going to lie. When I looked at both of our fixtures, well, it is what it is. What you make, obviously, look, we spoke about United start, and obviously, look, we've talked about how we've been playing. But when you look at Liverpool and you look at the opposition, it's very uncharacteristic of kind of how they usually play. What do you make of their start so far this season, and do you think it may be a struggle for them compared to previous seasons?
Yeah, I think obviously they've not had an ideal start. I actually watched the game against Fulham, who were fantastic, to be honest, on the day. They come right out the traps. It was all, looking really sharp and sort of was right in Liverpool's face from the minute go. I think Liverpool was just a little bit sloppy and couldn't really get sort of a real foothold in the game, just purely based on Fulham's work rate and the way they went about that particular game. But I watched the Palace game as well the other day. They sort of looked a little bit more like the Liverpool we've seen over previous seasons, but again, didn't really think he was looking, like he was firing on all cylinders. So it's one of them games where obviously we've just come on off the back of a really bad result at Brentford, but I'm not as sort of worried as I probably would have been last season when I knew how well Liverpool were playing. All the players were in tip-top shape. It was all, on fire, if you like, and, hitting, the sort of 8, 9 out of 10s every week, whereas I think at this moment in time, they're not quite there yet. It's probably a good time to play them if you can see where I'm coming from in the fact that both teams haven't been playing well. It's a massive derby. United need to have a reaction from the start they've made this season. They've obviously had a boost with, the signing of Casemiro and, potential, the taking over from, Jim Ratcliffe maybe, happening. So there should be a little bit more of a buzz if the game does go ahead. But yeah, I think Liverpool have obviously, got a lot to prove and obviously 4 points already behind City, so they won't want to, lose any further ground on that because, City have looked formidable again already in the first 2 games. So yeah, it's going to be a difficult game to predict. I wouldn't know where to start with a prediction on this one because it could be literally any result, if I'm being honest. But yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting one. And as I say, United, it's a massive derby. You need to, make sure you're running, fighting, and tackling for every single ball. And when you've got that bit of time on the ball, you need to make sure you've got that bit of quality, which I think has been the most disappointing thing for me, really. Obviously, we've conceded goals, we've made bad mistakes, but we don't look like we're going to score a goal, to be honest, this season. In the first 2 games, I think we've not looked like we've got, that attacking edge now. When I watched us in pre-season, obviously, Martial's injured and
He's back this week. He's back for the game.
Yeah, I mean, he's been injured for the other games, so we've not had him in, but we've just not looked like we've got that cutting edge about us. And obviously, after seeing us in pre-season, I know pre-season's what it is, and you don't read too much into it, but we actually looked like we was sort of finding a little bit of form and some relationships between certain players, and I've not really seen any of that so far. So disappointed with obviously that side of things more so than the obviously the other side of the coin where we've obviously conceded goals, mistakes and poor defending and being naive and not aggressive and not working hard enough and all that. But we're not going to win any games of football if we're not creating and scoring goals. So I think we need to get that sorted as soon as possible.
Yeah, and I think what you mentioned quite rightly there in terms of this is probably the best time in the season where we're going to play Liverpool, because if this is a couple of months later when they hit their stride and their injuries come back, it may be a different story. Like I look at their midfield kind of conundrum at the minute. Like Thiago being out, I think it could be a big one for us, because he's obviously a brilliant player. I know I've slagged him off in the past, but that's just kind of trying to boil some piss between myself and Liverpool fans on Twitter. But like he is a good player, he dictates play very well. I think Fabinho being out is a loss also for him. Like Kanate on that right channel as well, is also a loss. But like they still do have very good players. I think obviously I think Luis Diaz is a fantastic footballer. Has been a very good signing for him. Obviously Mo Salah is Mo Salah. Like you give him a chance, he'll take it most likely. Same as like Cristiano. If you give him a chance, he'll score. But like it's one of them where it's a hard, like as much as like look, they beat us twice last season. I think this is a harder game to predict, considering both teams haven't hit their full stride. Considering, look, if you want to be honest, these two teams played each other a few weeks ago. Now again, pre-season, but they have played each other very recently. Now I know we won that game, but obviously both teams were chopping and changing during the game. That obviously probably has no bearings on what's going to happen on Monday. But I think you're right, Phil. Like the fact it's Old Trafford, the fact it's a Monday night football, it's going to be under the lights, especially everything that's happened this week. I think these players need to show up, and they do need to stand up and be counted. They do need to create chances. I dare to say this Casemiro deal is going to be done tomorrow, and probably he'd be in the UK for Sunday. We're probably going to see, I think, a Raphael Varane moment Monday. I think what they're going to do is they're probably going to present him before the game, probably trying to stop the fans protesting. I think that's what they're probably going to do by trying to do that. They're probably going to try to deter the fans from protesting. I'm going to be honest, that's not going to work. The fans are going to protest anyway. But like I think that type of moment, Casemiro coming out, being presented, might give the players a boost. Now, it'd be interesting to see kind of like what Ten Hag does this Monday, because if you look at Liverpool, they have a number of players out in midfield. So the likelihood we're probably going to see, Harvey Elliott, Milner, Henderson probably is their midfield three. You think that probably get a midfield three, or Curtis Jones, or someone like that in the middle of the park for them. And then you have your standard Trent, Robertson, Van Dijk. It'll be either Phillips or Joe Gomez centre half, because obviously Kanate and Matip are both out. So like, this isn't the strongest Liverpool team we're going to play. So I think Ten Hag, I think he needs to be kind of tactical with this, like with this formation he's going to play this week, because like I think he can't be too open. If he plays the same formation he plays against Brentford, without injuries or not with Liverpool, I think they'll really pick us apart. So I think he needs to be a tiny bit more pragmatic, just to make sure we don't concede goals too early, but we're in the game. But it's interesting because obviously we haven't started well. Like, I know it's Liverpool at home. Does Ten Hag think we need to attack? We need to get the fans up, or does he go with the kind of the pragmatic approach of stay in the game and then get a goal? Obviously as we grow into the game, but it's strange. I wonder how he does it. Like what he does this weekend.
Do you think potentially? Because obviously I've seen Raphael Varane potentially could be coming back into the side. Do you think he might maybe push Martinez a little bit into that CDM role, and see how that works? Just because obviously I think a lot of people have been saying in the press about his height and the physicality of the Premier League. Obviously the goal against Brentford the other day, don't necessarily think it was his fault. But I think a lot of people, Carragher and people that have been sort of saying about
Jamie Carragher has been trying to, like, I'm just going to be honest about this. Jamie Carragher has been trying to drive an agenda against Lisandro Martinez since the minute he signed him. Carragher actually didn't watch the game and he blamed Martinez. Like, that's absolute, it was the Brighton game, I think it was, he didn't even watch. Or was the Brentford? It was 1-2, because he said he didn't watch the game, but he said they were targeting him down that side. I think it's absolutely ludicrous for like Carragher's agenda, because if you actually look at the statistics, I know even during the game he was dealing with both, like in both Brentford and Brighton, he actually didn't do too badly compared to other players. And Like the statistics back up, he wasn't that bad either.
Yeah.
I think what it is Jamie Carragher is just anti-United,
Yeah.
and he's just trying to drive that agenda. It's pure scouts, like.
Yeah. No, I wasn't sort of, saying that he was sort of struggling or anything, because if you look at the duels and stuff, I think he has done reasonably well so far. I was just thinking, obviously, because of all this sort of speculation and talk of him maybe not having the height, that Ten Hag may maybe try him in that sort of, CDM role and see how that works, because I know he can play that position. And obviously with the likes of if Firmino's playing, who likes to drop into them pockets and come off the two centre halves, it may be a game that could potentially suit him in that role.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely bang on. I think we need to call Varane back up for this game, regardless of where we put Lisandro in midfield or not. I think he's integral to the way we're going to play in this game.
Yeah.
Because I think his experience, and in most games last season where he played in the defence, we didn't lose that many games. Yeah. So I think we do need to kind of start him in the back. And look, I agree with Martinez in midfield as well, because he's comfortable on the ball as well. So when Liverpool press, when you have Firmino, when you have Henderson and Milner, who are older players, but they're still aggressive and they still press, and they use that trigger to press. Obviously, without Casemiro in there, I think having Lisandro Martinez in there in the two with either whether it's Fred or whether it's McTominay, preferably. I know him and Fred are two left footers, but I think you need him in there for a sheer tenacity in there.
Yeah. Well, I mean that again was part of my thinking behind him maybe doing that, because obviously when you look at the centre halves now that we're going to have, we've got Varane, who's going to obviously be a little bit more experienced. He's got a bit more pace to deal with the likes of Salah and Diaz. I think that role for Martinez may be suited for this particular fixture. So that was obviously my thinking behind him sort of pulling into that position. Because as I say, he likes getting stuck in. I think that's going to be a big part of this particular fixture. We need somebody who's going to be able to put a tackle in, get stuck in, but still be able to take the ball and be comfortable on the ball. So yeah, I actually think that is what he'll go with on Monday, just to sort of counteract what Liverpool do in that particular part of the pitch. So. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see. I actually feel as though that would be a good play by Ten Hag, just to sort of give us a better chance, really, of again trying to counteract them and sort of keeping us sort of a little bit more safe, but then also being able to make some more passes and get someone who can pick a pass from that position and try and get us on the front foot when we're trying to create and score goals.
Yeah, and I think as well, like you're right, his passing range, he is good at that aspect of the game. But also, like if we want to try win the ball back quickly and transition it quickly, I think he's someone who can definitely be utilize that, especially in the counter attack. Would it worry you though? Let's say if we did play him and Fred in there, the fact that I know we've done it before with Matic and Fred in midfield, and it has worked before. But like having two left footers in there, do you think that would necessarily be a problem in there on Monday?
Yeah, I mean, potentially it's one of them. Obviously, Premier League football. I know he's left-footed, but surely, he's just as good with his right foot as well. You'd expect him to be able to deal with that. And as I say, two players being left-footed, I don't think would be a major issue. Even though when people sort of look at it and they do all the sort of analysing of how people should play in this position and that. For me, I think. They're both comfortable on the ball. They should be able to play, in a position regardless of, being a preferred foot. And as I say, I just think for his tenacity and the way that this particular game's set up, I think that'd be a good way to go with him in there. I think that'd give us probably the best chance of getting some out of the game.
Yeah, I think him and Fred, I know that balance issue might be there, but I think if you look at his aggressive nature, if Milner and Henderson are in there, we can match that.
Yeah, I think it's one of them as well, Keane. I don't think at this moment in time we haven't really got anything to lose. So why not try it and see what happens? And again, it could be something that doesn't work, and we have to sort of rejig reshuffle the pack again. But it could be something that actually, really works well against the top side. And then we can sort of build on that and say, right, well, we've found something now that's actually working. We're going to give these 2 players, maybe or 3 players, whatever it is, a chance to try and gel, build up a bit of a relationship and give them a run in the team and try and, get to a level where we're consistently, performing. Because I think that's been the biggest issue really with the club over the sort of past couple of seasons, most certainly, that we haven't had a sort of settled 11, and that's obviously for loads of different reasons, COVID and all that kind of stuff. But, when I look at our team, I don't think Ten Hag at this moment knows his best 11. I don't think any of the managers previously have known the best 11 for a period of time. And I think that's why we've not really seen the consistency levels that we've needed. Because when you look at all the other teams who, fighting for all these competitions, their teams pretty much pick themselves unless, there's injuries and suspensions. So I think we need to get to a stage where where we're at, and we give players to try and a chance to try and gel and get to know each other a little bit. Because, as you know, in football, if you're chopping and changing every single week and you're playing with different players and all that kind of stuff, it doesn't help. And it's a nightmare for managers, trying to, play a certain way and then you're having to change it for personnel and people's strengths, weaknesses. And yeah, it's something that I think we need to sort of now just try and, go with. Obviously, if all the players are fit, give them a chance. If it doesn't work, then again, we've got to look at recruitment and try and bring people in who can play in that style of play.
I think it's definitely something that needs to be trialed at least, because let's say if he does play well there, him and Casemiro could be a partnership. You just never know.
Yeah.
They're both aggressive midfielders, and it could be something that is completely different to what we have now, and it's something that teams wouldn't be expecting. Obviously, in McTominay, Fred play, everyone knows what they expect from that pairing, and they know how to kind of combat that pairing. So it could be something different, and like no better time to try it than Monday night. Now that we've actually talked about that, we've talked about kind of how Liverpool have been aggressive, and we've talked about their start to the season. We're actually going to do our lineups and predictions. Now, obviously, Lee isn't here. So, Lee, you're going to have to take an L this weekend, not unless you give us the lineups in the chat, which, look, hopefully you do. I did say at the start of the season we would do our own little league table between the 3 of us about score predictions, and we all haven't scored a point yet this season. So hopefully this weekend it can be a start to this. Like last season, Phil got off to a great start.
Yeah, I was good last year, but I mean, this season, I don't think anyone would have predicted them first 2 results, especially not last week, Brentford 4-0. That was just, yeah. I mean, if you got that right, then fair play to you. You must
fair play to you. They're probably in the minority that on Leicester 5,000 to 1. They're probably in that minority.
100%.
They're probably in that minority. And I always see a post like, what would you take, $5 million or the ability to go back to the past? I would definitely go back to the past, and I'd throw all my savings on Leicester 5,000 to 1. Imagine that. But anyway, we're sidetracking there. We're sidetracking. Yeah, look, we go to our lineups and predictions, and Lee, if you are watching or listening back later on, do give your predictions in our group chat so we can update this in next week's show, and I can actually bring our league table up on screen, for next week's show on my Excel file. We'll have to put that up. But yeah, look, we will get that in there. So first of all, Phil, I'll get your lineup and formation there, 1 to 11 for Monday Night Football.
Right. Okay. I'm going to say obviously De Gea in net. I think last week wasn't his greatest performance by any stretch, but I think he has been one of our better players certainly last season. So I think he'll still be given an opportunity to sort of prove himself and show a good reaction. So I think De Gea in net. I'm going to go for Dalot. I'm going to go for Varane, Maguire, and I think Malacia is going to get a game. Don't know why. I think obviously Shaw has started the first 2 games, but I just feel as though because of his pace, and obviously I think he's a lot more sort of forward-minded than Shaw. In terms of what I've seen in pre-season and stuff, I think he'll give him an opportunity against obviously a good side to see what he's about. So I've gone with that as the back four. I think Martinez will be in the CDM role with Fred and Eriksen, and then I think the front three, obviously I'm going to go for Ronaldo, Sancho, and then I think it's a toss-up between Rashford and Bruno, but I think obviously from what I seen the other day, obviously Rashford weren't great by any stretch, but I think, you know, he had little glimpses where he looked like he was going to do something, but it never really panned out. And obviously being 3-0 down at the time when I think he was doing what he was doing, it was sort of, the game was already put to bed. Bruno hasn't really done anything for me in the last couple of games, not really done enough to probably warrant a start, but yeah, if I had to choose, I'd probably say Rashford, just on the basis of I think he's looked more likely to do something in the first couple of games.
He has a history of roasting Trent, and I think, like, look, that's something that maybe, like, if there's ever a game for Marcus Rashford to come back to his form, it's against Trent Alexander-Arnold. Because we all know, you know, what Rashford has done with him in the past. But let's see. So just to reiterate, Phil, your lineup is De Gea, Dalot, Varane, Malacia, Martinez, Fred. Who was your 10? Was it Eriksen or was it Bruno?
Yeah, Eriksen, Rashford, Sancho, Ronaldo.
Eriksen, Rashford, Sancho, Ronaldo. Very, very interesting. Very, very interesting. What's mad is, right, my 1 to 11, I have 10 out of the 11 in my predicted 11 for next week. Now, everyone's going to say Keane, you, Tom Heaton in goal. My prediction is that David De Gea starts this week, but after this game, we may see him be dropped. Result dependent. Yeah. I don't think if you're throwing Tom Heaton in goal, I don't think this week's the right week to do it.
I agree with you on that, Keane. As I said then, I think it'd be a massive sort of curveball if he did throw the likes of Tom Heaton into this game. You know, he's not played for a long time. It's obviously a massive game. I think De Gea's obviously had a bad week last week, but again, I think he will potentially get dropped, but I don't think this is the right time to do it just because of the situation and the sort of the team that we're up against and the sort of type of game that it's going to be. I think it'd be a little bit too much to ask to throw Tom Heaton into a game like that on such short notice. So, yeah, I agree with you.
I think just with the trajectory of how David De Gea has played in the last 6 months, I think like he's struggling. He is currently struggling in this system, and I think it's not sustainable to have him in goal all season. That's just my opinion. People might disagree with it, but I just think David De Gea's time at Man United is done. To be quite honest, I think he'd be better off at a different club. And just considering the style of play, I do appreciate everything he's done for us. He's been a fantastic goalkeeper for the football club and a great servant to the football club. But I just think we do kind of need to move on, and we do need to put someone else in between the sticks. I think at this moment in time, Tom Heaton is a better fit for what we need. Just from a command in the box standpoint, I think also he'd be better sweeping the David De Gea, and also from distribution as well. I think he'd be a lot better at that compared to David De Gea. But look, again, that's just my opinion on it. But I will go with my 11 anyway. So I do have 10 out of the 11 that Phil and actually Mark in the comments has predicted as well. Obviously, David De Gea in goal. I have Dalot in there because bizarrely, we've our best right back out on loan at the moment. I just find that so bizarre. Our best right backs out on loan at QPR at the moment. I find that quite embarrassing, to be honest. But look, it is what it is. So I go Dalot right back. Varane and Maguire, I do agree. I think as well with this game, I don't think he's going to start Malacia, just because I think with this game, I don't think he throws either Heaton or Malacia to the Wolves because it's Liverpool. I think he start Luke Shaw for experience, even though on merit he shouldn't start. I agree with you, Phil. And I think Malacia should play there. But I think Luke Shaw will start just on the basis of experience. And I don't think for young Malacia, I think if you're going to throw him in, I think it's on after this game. And similarly with De Gea as well. I think Luke Shaw will start this game. However, I went with the same midfield three, and front three as well. So I've gone Martinez, Fred, Eriksen, and Sancho, Rashford, and Ronaldo. Similarly, I think Rashford and Sancho have both been the same level since we started this season. I think both of them have been quite I think Rashford has been less poor than him because he's actually got into positions and I know he hasn't scored, but he's got into positions to have that chance. I think Jadon Sancho can't beat the first man. He can't beat a player. He keeps giving the ball away, and that's something he never usually does.
Yeah.
So I think both of them are struggling at the minute, and I think
proper frustrating, isn't it, with Sancho? Because obviously pre-season he looked, like he had a new lease of life. He was scoring goals. He was running through the middle of the pitch. He was, he looked like he could beat a man. He looked quick, and as soon as the Premier League started, it just looks like the switch has been flicked, and he can't beat a man. He's giving the ball away needlessly. He's not tracking back. He looks like he's got no confidence. Which is bizarre, really, because this season I was expecting him, I tipped him really to be sort of, probably our best player this year. And, off the first couple of games, it's, been worrying really with the way he sort of has looked just within himself as well. He doesn't look as though he's sort of enjoying his football, which I get. Obviously, at the moment, it's not a great time to be, at the club with everything that's been going on and results and stuff, but you need to in order to play, your best football, you need to be, happy and sort of, playing with a smile on your face. And I think the sooner we get, our players back feeling good about, themselves and, the performances, then we'll hopefully see some better performances moving forward.
Yeah, I think, again, Sancho was a strange one because I think last season we see him start quite slowly. Now, he did have issues with COVID last season and injuries early on. And to be fair, Ollie was kind of playing Pogba on the wing as well. So there was kind of different kind of issues why he didn't kind of, get the start that we all thought he could have. But I think it's interesting because I think he needs, I know Rashford's taken a lot of stick from fans. I think you kind of have to look at Jadon Sancho at the moment and say he, just as much as Rashford, he's underperformed as well. Now, again, I'm not going to sit here and say things like people say on Twitter and they fully, badmouth the player, they abuse the player and stuff like that. No, that's not the case at all. But I look at him and say, both him and Rashford have in their locker to play better, to beat that first man, to get balls early into the box, to shoot. I look at so many Marcus Rashford highlights, and I look, especially under Solskjaer, how well he actually played.
Yeah. It's like as though they've sort of lost that spark and that ability to sort of want to create an opportunity and beat a man and do something special like we know they can do. I think it's just disappointing, and I think that they've just sort of been shot of confidence for so long, and it's just got to a stage now where they don't want to give the ball away, so they're just doing everything that's safe. And we want them to be the players that take the risks in the final third and do the things that we want to see and be them players that can do something different, because we've seen them do it on numerous occasions. They're just not doing it at the moment for whatever reason.
And it's like they've almost forgot how to in the final third, in that kind of final phase of play, what to do. Whether it's, I think massively it is a confidence thing, for Jadon and for Marcus as well. I think it's massively a confidence thing because we've seen how they can do it. We see, especially with Jadon Sancho, how he can drift wide or he can, cut in, and Marcus as well. He usually even if he beats the first man, he brings the ball just a tiny bit inside and creates a little. It might be the tiniest of angles, but he get that shot off, And I think it's. I can't I don't know what it is, but I can't pinpoint why they're not doing it anymore. I don't know. Is it confidence? Is it military instruction? You just don't know.
Yeah, it is. It's a really weird one because, as I say, them players in them positions are in the team to be the players that create things for us, that are the ones that are willing to take a risk and beat a man and get crosses in, try and be creative in and around the box, and none of them really, put everybody sort of really in that category at the moment. Even Bruno, Ronaldo, they just don't look as though, the sort of they've got the ability to do, which sounds crazy, but at this moment in time, it's what I'm watching and what I'm seeing. It doesn't look like they've got the ability and the confidence and the desire to want to create a chance, or to put the neck out and get on the end of a cross, or even put a cross into the box. It's that bad at the minute. We're not doing anything in terms of creating and taking risks. And I think the sooner we get players back to sort of any sort of level that are doing that, I think we'll sort of start being a little bit more of a threat. I think teams are sort of, Brentford the other day, I think their centre halves must have, got the cigars out after about 20 minutes, thinking there's nothing happening up here. What's going on? And that should never be the case with any team that's up against Man United, with the amount of talent that we've got on that pitch. You should be causing problems, all the time, in and out of, bad performances and stuff. You should always want to, try and create a chance, or because what's the point in, playing otherwise? That's what you're in the team to do, not to just pass it back and, keep possession and, don't give the ball away and just, run around. No, you're in the team to create our chances, to put the ball in the back of the net, to give defenders problems, to make runs and give other people opportunities to create space, and we're not seeing any of that, which is it's worrying. As I said, that I think that's our biggest sort of problem really at this moment in time. I know we've leaked a lot of goals and we look poor defensively as well, but that Man United way of playing forward, getting the ball out wide, putting balls in the box, being aggressive in the final third, having the, confidence and sort of arrogance to beat a man and do something different. We've not got any of that, and it's sad to see really, because that's what everyone comes to Old Trafford to see. At the end of the day, you want to see goals, you want to be entertained, you want to watch good football, and these players have been performing well below par for a considerable amount of time now, and it needs to change.
Yeah, and it's something where I look at these performances and I look at these players and I'm thinking there's so much more you can give. Like, there's so much more you can do. I know you have that talent in abundance. And I think we need to start seeing it sooner rather than later. There's no better time to do it than Monday. There's absolutely no better time to do it than Monday. Like, Robertson has been very underwhelming since the start of the season. He hasn't been himself. And hence, like, I watched him the other night, like, he got taken off Timicas. We don't often see that. Like, obviously, Trent, we know how brilliant he is going forward. Like, he's one of the best right backs in the world going forward. But defensively, he does have his frailties. And I think if there's a time where Marcus Rashford can gain some confidence back, it is against Trent Alexander-Arnold. I really do believe that. But look, we will wrap it up there just with score predictions, Phil. What's your score prediction for Monday's game? Are you going to go out on a limb here?
Oh, mate, you've done me, because honestly, I can't actually think of a result straight off the top of my head. I am actually going to say, though, I think we will get something out of this game, and I actually believe that. I'm not going to say we're going to win, because I think that's a little bit too optimistic with the way we've started. But I am going to say we're going to get a point. I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw. There's going to be a few goals, so I'm going to say a 2-2 draw.
2-2 draw. That an entertaining game at Old Trafford. That would be interesting. Oh, I can't believe I'm actually going to say this. I'm going to go 1-0 United. I'm going to go 1-0. I'm going to say we're going to keep a clean sheet and we're going to nick. We're not going to deserve to win, but we're going to win. I think we're not going to deserve it by any stretch of imagination. I think if anything, it'll be a dodgy win for us. We'll probably still look frail, but for some reason we're going to win the game. I'm going to go 1-0, and I'll add to that. Do you know what? I'm actually going to go with a Marcus Rashford winner. Just I think, it'd be great to see him put Trent on toast one last time. Well, not one last time, but another time. I don't think Marcus is leaving anytime soon. But yeah, they're both our score predictions. I've gone 1-0 United, and Phil has gone 2-2. We will get Lee's score prediction for the game, and then look, I'll be able to put it on the screen then next Friday, and let's see if one of the three of us does get it right. Hopefully, please God, as we say. But thanks very much everyone for watching. Thanks everyone for listening in as well. We will be back on Monday, obviously post-match podcast. I'll be on there. Mark will be hosting. Mark's asked Phil, he's available on Monday. Phil will respond to that with Mark on Twitter. And yeah, we will be on dissecting the game. So hopefully, as any match reaction we've actually had on Talk to Devils, we've actually never won a game when I've been on. So look, hopefully I can break my duck. Monday would be the best time to do it, especially against the Scousers. That would be the best thing ever. But yeah, do like, share, and subscribe, guys. We do appreciate your support, and we do have a lot of interesting podcast interviews coming up in the next couple of weeks. So do make sure to check it out and subscribe on YouTube and on all audio platforms, whichever audio platform you prefer to use. And yeah, thanks very much for your support over the last couple of weeks. And look, we will be back here as well, myself, Phil, and hopefully Lee here as well next week. And we will be dissecting the Liverpool game. We're also talking about the upcoming Southampton game after that. But until then, guys, thanks very much everyone for watching, and we'll see you next week.